Erie. It's Monday, September 9th. Welcome back for another Flagship City Sports Talk brought to you by Quickfill. My name is Nick Artman, and as always, I'm joined by the Honorable Paul Adamsack. Judge, how you doing today?
I'm doing real well. Spent my weekend watching the U.S. Open, so I'm in great spirits.
We'll get into that today because I'm going to be the odd one out here in terms of enjoyment of the U.S. Open. So we'll talk with somebody here in a little bit. You guys can geek out about tennis for a little bit.
Love it.
But you're looking good. You got the Dolphins throwback. You're feeling good after this weekend.
I am wearing the jersey of the NFL's leading passer through week one with one game to go. So I feel good.
Which isn't saying much. There was not a lot of passing going on over the weekend. We'll get into that stuff later on. And in the big chair, we have the great and powerful Rich Smith. Rich, how you doing, man?
Not too bad. No technical difficulties today. Do not,
Not yet. Not yet.
Don't
Why did you
jinx it.
say that? No, now we're screwed. Now we're screwed. That's okay. We'll figure it out. Like I said, we're still figuring this out as we go and trying to figure out, the best way to get everybody some content here as well. Speaking of content, we're working on this new Gem City Sports Podcast Network. And part of that, we're going to bring in a guy you've seen a lot on that network so far, Isaac Petcash from Erie News Now. Isaac, how you doing, man?
Boys, what's going on? We finally arrived, right? We can actually break down, dissect things, make it fun. There's no hyperbole anymore. We're going to overreact a ton, which I'm a big fan of. And Paul, I am thrilled, might I say, to find an actual, real, living, breathing tennis fan in addition to myself in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I have been on the hunt for years, and it's finally marked the day down. Monday, September 9th, I've got it.
You've got it. I tell you what, you got to come watch tennis with me and my wife. She is the tennis fan in our household. She is so good, so knowledgeable. I love watching it with her. Arena Sabalenka was so awesome on Saturday. That blind pirouette winner at midcourt. She's awesome. It was great tennis.
It's funny. My wife's the same way. She actually got me into tennis when I was 12, 13 years old. And it was just so cool to get to see. I'll tell you what, something was wrong, I think, with Taylor Fritz. I think he was exhausted, tired, going 5 with Tiafoe in the semifinals. But, man,
yes.
Yannick Sinner's a different breed from what he was last year, and his ability now to not just hit his signature backhand, but also hit forehands down the line, and his serve's gotten so much better. You got a new generation in tennis, man. The Fed, Nadal, Djokovic are out. It's the first time for Novak Djokovic in the 2010s and 2020s that he hasn't won a major. Pretty surreal stuff. So, football was on over the weekend, but tennis was too. So let's give our boys in the tennis world a little bit of a shout out here.
Love it. Love it.
Are we sure? Are you guys done?
For now.
Nick,
we got 3 more blocks.
We're so sorry to take up so much of your precious time.
Well, I just want to make sure we still have listeners. That's all. I'm just trying to move the conversation going on.
An American in each of the finals, and they both go down in the end. It was a little bit disappointing for American tennis fans, but overall.
And there was again, this is correct me if I'm wrong, because I have no tennis knowledge at all, but there's a Bills connection that was in the U.S. Open this weekend, right?
Yeah. Jessie Pegula, the daughter of the Bills and Sabres owners, was in the finals. Her first final. She's ranked 6th in the world right now. We call her Pesky Pegula because she just never seems to go away. Won 5 straight games in the second set, just not enough.
Yeah. And get this, she's going to be the top-ranked American after the U.S. Open. She gains a bunch of rankings points after losing early in the tournament last year. She's going to supersede Coco Gauff.
I was going to say Coco went down early. Yep.
I know literally none of those names.
There's a half a dozen people listening. They're like, yes.
When is Boris Becker playing next?
Our viewership just went up by 1. All right. Speaking of viewership and what we're going to do, Mike Campbell, hello on Facebook. Join us on streams because we are all over the place. Mike just commented on Facebook, but we're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on X. Give us a follow. You can look up either Flagship City Sports Talk or the Gem City Sports Podcast Network as well. Send us some comments. We want to hear from you. We want to be talking to you guys today because we are going to be reacting to the NFL action in week 1 for our Rust Belt teams, looking at the Steelers, looking at the Bills, looking at the Browns. So we want to find out where we are. Are we overreacting? Are we underreacting? Should we panic? Should we not panic? And where we are. And also, we threw up a poll on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network X page. I'm getting away from Twitter. I'm trying to remember X. It's like a pause in my brain. But go take a look there. And what we're asking today and what we're going to talk about a lot today is, should Justin Fields start in week 2? So go answer the poll, give us some comments, and you have a chance to be on the air with us today as well. You guys ready to hit it?
Can't wait.
Go for it.
All right, let's jump into the Rust Belt Rundown. All right, today's Rust Belt Rundown brought to you by Duska's Funeral Home. Let's start in Pittsburgh. On Sunday, the Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 18-10, thanks in large part to Chris Boswell's 6 field goals and a relentless defense. Paul, let's throw it to you first. What was kind of your first reaction to this Steelers win in Atlanta?
So I have 2 points on this one. And the first one was Chris Boswell, the last of the killer bees, Ben, Bell, Brown, and Boswell. Was his usual fantastic yesterday, underrated, maybe underappreciated, but his right foot will be a pillar of the Steelers offense again this season.
Just not afraid to put him out there.
No,
right?
And he's been good for so long. Do you listen to Ben, Bell, Brown? Those guys have been out of the league for a while now. Boswell was there with all of them, and he was good then, too.
Yeah. You have people online going, I remember Le'Veon Bell.
Exactly. I feel like an old head talking about those guys. But, I mean, Boswell was one of the killer bees. I thought that was a cool reference. But he's been good for a long time, I guess is what I'm saying. And it seems another year that you have a real weapon in your kicker. Believe me, as a guy who's seen some choke kicker jobs in the last couple of years, it's nice to have a guy like Boswell where you just kind of is it under this number? Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Boswell connected from 57, 56, 51, 44, 40, and 25. So it's not like these were chip shots. I mean that's 3 50-yard field goals.
If you get inside the 40-yard line, you got a shot.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yep. This is per NFL research. Chris Boswell joined John Carney, this was in 1993, as the only kickers to make 6 field goals without a miss in a Week 1 game in NFL history. Pat Cash, what do you think about Boswell? Can they ride that foot to the playoffs?
Well, I think they've got the kicker position lined up well, and I think he's one of the top 5 kickers in the league, but I want to go a different direction. A lot of people are going to make out of Chris Boswell having to kick field goals as the offense didn't do their job. I disagree. I think this Arthur Smith thing's going to work. Watching back the game yesterday, the one number that stuck out to me, 0. No turnovers. It was a clean game for Pittsburgh. And that's, I think, what a lot of people are going to overshadow in a game like yesterday. The offense only had 270 yards. Justin Fields didn't throw a touchdown. But what they did better than what they did last year is they complemented each other based on the personnel they had. George Pickens was targeted 8 times, 6 catches, 85 yards. Najee Harris, 70 yards on 20 carries. Not eye-popping numbers, but for Week 1, you're not looking to light the world on fire. What you wanted is a clean game. Justin Fields didn't know he was going to start before Sunday. He comes in, does his job, and gets Pittsburgh into a position where they let their defense win the football game. And that's the thing. If you put a 0 in the turnover column all 18 games of this season, I know it's not going to happen. Anytime, though, you have a 0 in that category, Pittsburgh's likely going to win the game because you know the defense is going to make at least one game-changing turnover per game. And again, at some point, 2 or 3 of those field goals will turn into touchdowns. I think this Arthur Smith thing is going to work, and I know we're going to get into Justin Fields in just a little bit, but I'll tell you what, I think he's the answer. I don't think it's Russ.
I want to piggyback off that, Isaac. Thank you very much. The Steelers offensive staff did something yesterday that the Bears failed to do for 4 years, and that's design and implement a game plan for Justin Fields that was effective in that he wasn't asked to put the team on his back, throw 30 to 40 times. 23 pass attempts yesterday, utilized his legs effectively, 14 carries without taking hits, and you said it, no turnovers. Listen, put a couple of points on the board and lean on the defense. If TJ Watt makes a handful of plays, the offense puts up just enough, and it gives Pittsburgh a chance every single week. Not great if you're a fan with a heart condition, but they're going to be in every single game.
So I'm with you. And we talked a lot about Fields. Can he run this offense? Can he be that mistake free? Especially you, Paul, you had talked a lot about he was just so mistake prone in Chicago, trying to force the ball, right? And then you had the fumbled snaps in the offense, and then you had that fumbled snap to start this game, and you're like, oh, here we go. Here's the Fields experience all over again. But I think he did enough. I think he played well. He's our Gem City poll of the day. Go over to the Gem City Sports Network Twitter X page and give a vote there whether you think he should be playing or not. I want to dive more into this offense, and I want to dive more into Fields because I do want to ask that question. Should Fields be the starter? I do want to talk about this offense. So let's take a break right now. And when we get back, we'll continue on with the conversation. Follow along online. Give us some comments. All right. That segment was brought to you by Duskus Funeral Home. We got to take a break, but we'll keep recapping week 1 for the Rust Belt teams when we get back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quickfill. Just give me the... Welcome back. Flagship City Sports Talk brought to you by Quickfill. We're talking NFL Week 1. I could do this all day. We could do 4 hours just on this Steelers offense. Paul Adamzak, Isaac Petcash, Rich Smith. I'm Nick Artman hanging out with you guys here this morning. And I want to keep talking about the Pittsburgh offense. And again, hop online, hop on Facebook, hop on Twitter, hop on YouTube. Send us some comments. What did you think about the Steelers offense this week? We're going to get into some Bills talk later if you want to talk Bills, and we're going to get into some Browns talk later as well. Send us some comments. But we left off the last segment. We were talking about this Arthur Smith offense works. And I agree with you guys. I liked seeing Fields playing mistake-free. It's good that they're winning games. Unfortunately, this is going to be a Moses-paced offense. Listen to this drive summary. So they had 10 drives. Drive 1, 10 plays, 31 yards, field goal. Second, 10 plays, 18 yards, field goal. 8 for 23, punt. 4 for 45, field goal. 3 for -9, punt. 9 for 24, field goal. 5 for 46, field goal. 13 for 72. That was one you got excited about. A couple deep passes to Pickens, and then they turned over on downs because for some reason, the only time this game, they didn't kick a field goal. But 3 plays, -21. Okay, you got to punt in that situation. 7 for 11 and a field goal. It's slow-paced, but it works. So here's my question for you guys. How many games can this elite-looking defense keep them in the win column when your offense is just slowly grinding it out like this? The defense was otherworldly in this game. Cousins looked like he, was recovering from a really bad injury. How many games can you realistically keep or expect that game script?
Let me answer your question with a question. How many games does TJ Watt play this year?
That's a fair question. That's a fair question. And he's definitely one of the highlights to come out of this. I mean, Watt's going to be a real problem, right? He only had 4 total tackles, but that's 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss. He had 2 strip sacks taken away by a penalty. That first one, that offsides penalty. He talked about it in post game, how, he was grinding the tape, found that little golden nugget to use in a game, used it, and then they took it away, on an offsides penalty. And I'm not going to be the guy that sits here and blames the refs. Yes, it looked a little rough on Sunday, but if you got to, my opinion with the ref when you're looking at the officiating is, if you got to get to the point where you're blaming the officiating, there's a lot more that went wrong there as well.
Can I jump in with a numerical answer to your question, Nick?
Yeah.
17, because we saw it last year. I mean, this is a microcosm of what the offense was last year from week one. And again, a small sample size, but the defense kept this team in every game. And Paul, to your point, as long as TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Minkah Fitzpatrick are in the game, this team is good enough to limit teams to 10, 14, 20 points. But to me, I want to jump back to Fields for a second, because coming into the year, my concern with Justin over Russ, and I had prodded him to want to start, basically since the month of June. My concern, though, was he has a higher ceiling but a lower floor. And by lower floor, I mean turnovers. If Justin Fields and Arthur Smith can combine to limit turnovers while Fields is on the gridiron, what does he not have talent-wise that Russ does? You could argue, okay, veteran leadership. Russ has been there before. But, I mean, Justin's had to be in difficult situations, too, with a worse offensive line. So the one negative by putting Fields out there is that he's more turnover-prone. You take that away, and all you have left is the upside. I just can't see a scenario where if you're Mike Tomlin, you look and you say, we now have two quarterbacks who have very similar floors, but one of which has a tremendously higher ceiling. And we saw that in the game yesterday. Fields able to move out of the pocket, create plays at times, but also only had 6 incompletions. And again, I just go back to the no turnovers. You limit that from Justin Fields, that should be your starting quarterback, because there's nothing that he doesn't have that Russ does.
No, I agree with you 100%. Because when you think about Fields, Fields is maybe a little more turnover prone on the interception side of the ball, but those explosive plays are why he 100% should be starting over Russell Wilson, because Russ may not throw those interceptions, but how many sacks would have Russ taken yesterday had he started in this game? 5, 6? The offensive line is not playing very strong, and Fields gives you that explosive play with his legs to get out of that pocket where Russ is probably going to take those sacks, especially as he gets a little older, and has said so himself. He does not want to be a running style quarterback.
If they can limit his turnovers, it reminds me of an old phrase, a colloquialism. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. And this is the problem with Justin Fields, is we know who he is. Now, he had a great day yesterday in terms of not turning the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
How many times can you put him in there realistically and not expect him to regress to the mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, though, that the thing you have to keep in mind, and this is why I led off the bat with the Arthur Smith offense is going to work. This offense is not designed to cause catastrophic turnovers. It was a run-heavy offense.
No offense is designed to cause turnovers.
Right, but
zero.
Keep in mind what Arthur Smith does on offense, right? He is a running guy in principle. He likes to go outside the tackles. He's not somebody that's going to try to throw the ball vertically down the field play after play. And we saw that. Pittsburgh didn't take a ton of deep shots, and when they did, they were calculated, and George Pickens was open or in one-on-one coverage. Mm-hmm. I think Arthur Smith has been around the block enough to understand that he has a young quarterback or an aging veteran quarterback who's not capable of making the big throws. So, yeah, this offense is going to plod along, I think, for the first few weeks, but I think that's by design. And I think Arthur Smith was smart yesterday in saying, look, we're not going to try to chuck the ball down the field just because it's not Kenny Pickett anymore. I think what we need to do is we need to be methodical. We need to use our talent specifically at running back and then go from there. And so I don't think the game plan yesterday was to try to light the world on fire. I think it was exactly what it was meant to do. And that was limit turnovers, limit damage, get into position to score points, and then let the defense do the work.
Yeah, and it worked. I mean, the offense looked comfortable, right? Fields looked jumpy that first, fumbled the snap, looked a little jumpy in that second drive, but as the game went on, he got more and more comfortable. He was 17 of 23 for 156 yards, not great in a stat line. Fumbled that first snap, but he quickly jumped on it and he bounced back well. And then that upside that Isaac was talking about, he rushed 14 times for 57 yards, including a couple key keepers on third down to ice, especially the last one to ice the game. So if it's really the growth of Fields and the design of the Arthur Smith offense I'm okay with it. And I like the play action style. I think the play action worked perfectly yesterday. We even talk about Najee Harris. Najee was running like his pants were on fire yesterday. He looked great. It was one of his first games that he looked strong in a couple of years. So I like the offense, but my fear is, going back to what I was talking about with the slow as Moses thing, is I don't know that that's enough to win in today's NFL. You're counting on that defense. Correct. Yes, you need to have a good defense to win a championship, but defenses don't win championships anymore. Look at Mahomes, look at Allen and the Bills, which we're going to get to after this break. But it's you need to be able to put up points, and I don't know if keeping the other team's offense off the field is enough for them, to make the playoffs.
I think that's part of my point, is like yesterday is like best case scenario for the Pittsburgh offense. Yeah. And they got 18 points and benefited from there, and they were +3 in the turnover ratio. Yeah. And you're like, this is ideal. It looks slow. It was plodding. It wasn't very exciting or explosive, but it was effective. And at the end of the day, you go, well, we won the game and it was effective. But boy, if that's your ceiling, it's going to be a long year. And like you said, if you run into somebody who can put up 21 to 28 to 31 points, it's going to be a tough season for the Steelers to try to match firepower.
Right? I know that I may be like a Pittsburgh apologist here, guys, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. Maybe this is by design. All right, I want to take you through the schedule, and
I think it has to be, Isaac. It has to be.
If you go up to week 11, right, when we know the back half of their schedule starts and the real tough part of the schedule starts, if you eliminate the Dallas game in week 5, there is not an offense that this Pittsburgh team plays that is going to put up numerous amounts of points. Denver, Chargers, Indianapolis, Raiders, Jets, maybe, Giants, Commanders. There's nobody. So you can spend those 10 weeks working out kinks, trying to get things into more of a down-the-field offense if that's what you want to do. Really, Pittsburgh's goal, I think, and maybe I'm wrong in this, they're envisioning, look, let's be ready and firing on all cylinders when we get to week 12. If we can be there by week 12 and we're 6-3, 7-2, then we're going to try to start turning things on. If it's still concerning by that point, then I think we need to have a conversation. But I think this schedule is broken up into 2 sections that if you spend the first 10 weeks only scoring 21, 22 points a game, you're going to win 6 or 7 games. You're not going to beat Dallas. You may not beat the Jets. You're going to probably beat every other team. And so I think the key for Pittsburgh is going to be, how can you develop the offense all the way up until week 11 when you face Baltimore and start the chaos in the back half of the schedule? But the front half, you don't have to put up 30 points to win games. And that's the one thing that's advantaged Pittsburgh in this situation as we move through the schedule.
Judge, how say you?
I think when you take a look at the schedule, I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
You just naming off the teams, and I'm going like, yep, they stink. Yep, they stink. Yeah, they don't have a really
Don't
good
sleep on the
either.
Chargers, guys.
I'm sleeping on the Chargers. I don't know. It's going to be tough for Coach Harbaugh out there without Connor Stallions. I'm telling you. But yeah, he said the Commanders. You said the Giants. You said the Raiders. And I'm kind of like, yeah, none of those teams are really going to put up a whole lot of points, barring defensive catastrophe. So, yeah, those are going to be Pittsburgh Steelers style games. I think you're going to see a lot of what you saw yesterday, 18-10, 17-12 kind of football games that the Steelers in close games, they're good. The Steelers either win close or get blown out, it feels like.
Yeah. No, listen, I want to be excited about it too. It's going to be slow paced. It's going to be, maybe it works. Tomlin has often said, or he had said at one point, we're going to zag while everyone else zags. And okay, maybe that works. I don't know. I'm
we
maybe a little
the effort.
Yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical. I think they need to get the ball to Pickens. Pickens looked great yesterday. You need to get the ball in the hands of your new 4-year, $48.4 million tight end, Pat Freiermuth. And I think if you can start, if that play action run game does open up that offense, then I think I see a lot of those wins come in. And if they can get that pass game opened up a little more, that later half of the season doesn't look as bad either. So we'll see. Next game, Steelers play their second straight road game to open the season against Denver next Sunday. We got to take a break, but when we get back, we're going to keep talking some NFL news. We're going to be talking the Bills. Let us know online, comment online. What are some things you want to talk about with that Bills game? Right now, the Gem City Sports Network X poll looks, should Justin Fields start week 2 for the Steelers? 88.9% right now saying yes, he should. Hop in that conversation. Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. We can talk Steelers all day, but we can't. We need to move a little up I-90. Let's talk some Buffalo Bills news. Sticking in the Rust Belt Rundown.
Time to pay the toll.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started. Josh Allen delivers an MVP performance as the Bills rally for a 34-28 win over the Cardinals. Isaac, you were actually at this game, so let's go to you first. What's your biggest reaction coming out of this game?
I've got two. The first is obvious, right? Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He continues to be that guy. I think Paul and I were referring him as either as a gazelle or a moose. I think there's a little bit of both. A guy that can just put the team on his back. And we saw the first quarter and a half, the offense just didn't show up. They had nothing going on. They really didn't have the ball much at all during the first half. Arizona had it for over 20 minutes of the first 30 in this game. But then I think we saw at the end of the first half, they get that touchdown drive. Double dip in the second half. Josh Allen talked a lot about how important that was in being able to score the back-to-back touchdowns. And I think we started to see the offense come into form. You had 7 different receivers with a catch going into the fourth quarter. That was huge for the Bills. And I think the offense slowly started to find itself. Remember, it's going to be a work in progress with a new wide receiver room, but I think the Bills, 34 points, and Dalton Kincaid didn't factor into the game at all. That's a huge sign of confidence for this Joe Brady-led offense. That Kincaid's eventually going to get back into it, but still a great way for Buffalo to be able to make big plays. And then another thing that the other big thing
let's hang on Allen for a second because I want to unpack that because when we think we said this on the Thursday show. If you missed Thursday's show, if you're here looking for some high school football talk, we talked about that on Friday's show. Head over to youtube.com and look up the Gem City Sports Podcast Network and catch up there. But we said last Thursday, we said it for the Bills to win this game, Josh Allen needs to be Josh Allen. And guess what? Josh Allen is Josh Allen, just like you said. 18 of 23 for 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. Allen capped his 4th touchdown outing in this win by going airborne, scrambling to his right from Arizona 6. Allen burst towards the goal line, hurdled Budda Baker before being pushed out by another Cardinals defender and landing hard in the end zone, which we'll talk about the injury here in a little bit. But here's Allen talking about his 2 rushing touchdowns in a post-game clip.
The first rushing touchdown, I kind of lowered the shoulder, knowing that was a corner. The second time, I know it was Budda, and Budda's he's a good player, and he'll lay the boom on you. So I decided to go up and over, but probably can't make a living doing that. But here we are.
He probably can't make a living doing that. First off, shade to any cornerbacks listening. Listen, if you're a cornerback, Allen's going to drop that shoulder. But if not, he had to go up and over. And this is, we said, yes, to win this game, Josh Allen needs to be Josh Allen. But when Josh Allen is Josh Allen, that leaves you open to some injury stuff. And if you need him to win these games and you watch him go airborne over Budda Baker as a Bills fan, you got to be a little nervous.
Yeah, my takeaways from this game, it's hard for me to compliment the Buffalo Bills. So I only have a couple of points on this one. And my first one is I just wanted to say that how right I was the last week when we did what their strengths and weaknesses were. 3 sack day yesterday from Greg Rousseau. Yeah. Made up for a lot of deficiencies in that Buffalo secondary. Although I will say they handled Marvin Harrison Jr. much more effectively than I anticipated. Held that potential superstar, 1 catch for 4 yards. Offensively, they did what I thought that they needed to do this year. A lot of what I expected to see from Joe Brady. 24 rush attempts, not including the 9 from Josh Allen. So they're going to run the ball, put an emphasis on running the ball. I think that bodes well for them as the season goes along. But, I mean, Isaac, you said it. Josh Allen, 4 touchdown day, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground through himself. He's a freaking superstar. As long as the defense can keep them close, Josh Allen keeps you in football games.
And with Allen, he just needs to stay healthy, right? And I said about the injury, he's got an injury to his left hand, so nothing that's going to really keep him out of games. But what I did like about it was 18 receptions to 9 different receivers. It's like what Isaac was talking about on Thursday. He's spreading the ball around. There's not necessarily going to be one dominant Stephon Diggs type receiver, but he is spreading the ball around all over the place. Buffalo had 352 yards of total offense. Rookie Keon Coleman did finish with a game high 4 catches and 51 yards. Mm-hmm. But I think this is going to be that recipe for for success in Buffalo this year.
Nobody got more targets than Keon Coleman.
No.
5 targets. Shakir and Cook had 3 apiece, and then everybody 2 or less. So
Yeah.
you're an offense designed to not go through one guy. So Joe Brady, again, using all those weapons.
Yeah. Isaac, I cut you off on your second one, though. Go ahead. Hit us with your second reaction.
You're good. You're good. Paul illustrated it brilliantly. Greg Rousseau, I said on this show, and I think I said it on the Critical Eye, too, a few weeks ago, that is going to be, in my opinion, in contention for Defensive Player of the Year, and I maintain that standard. This guy's a freak of nature. And it was very interesting. I think it was pretty telling. Early on in the game, Bobby Babich did not trust the secondary, and so we didn't see a lot of blitzing from Buffalo. It was a lot of 4-man pressure. And Rousseau admitted to me, I asked him point blank after the game, I said, what was the difference in the second half to containing Kyler Murray? And he said, look, I think the first quarter and a half, we were really struggling to know whether we were supposed to go at him or try to contain him or try to keep him in the pocket. He said in the second half, we just did what we knew we'd do best, and that was attack him from the hash marks in, try to keep him in the pocket, and try to limit his time to be able to throw the football. I think that's what you saw in the second half. And look, as I've said for the defense, I think, Paul, you've mentioned it too, as goes the defensive line, so goes the defense. If Greg Rousseau and AJ Epinesa are making plays for this defense, they're going to be just fine. If they're not getting pressure on the quarterback, there's holes in the secondary. But I think defensively for the Bills in this game, what they figured out is that Kyler Murray, while a mobile quarterback, is not a guy who is great at throwing on the run. We saw a couple of times in that second half, Buffalo did a really good job of shading the pressure to the wide side of the field. They made Murray roll to his left. That's his weak side. Had a couple of throws that could have been interceptions that ended up being either lame duck passes or ones that went out of bounds. So a really good job of adjusting for Bobby Babich's defense. But yeah, I mean, Greg Rousseau, put it this way, if this, then that. If the Bills are going to win the division, Greg Rousseau is going to be in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. Because again, he's just a game wrecker, really tall on the edge there, and a guy who is like a TJ Watt prototype where he's a different sort of size and build. But if you don't double team him, he's going to get into the backfield in some capacity.
Yeah, I had my note was the same thing. Looked like a young TJ Watt, career best 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 3 tackles for a loss, and 3 QB hits. I mean, he was disruptive in that backfield. And we talked a little bit in the offseason too, like we needed to see who was going to step up. That was one of our training camp previews was who is going to step up and be that pass rusher for the Bills. And Rousseau was the top of our list and
had a great preseason.
Yeah.
He's continued that.
Absolutely. If we call things right, or if we predict things right, we're absolutely going to run it back. If we don't, you won't hear it, but we will take the victory lap on Rousseau, and not even just Rousseau, but that defensive line, I think is a huge focal point of that defense, like what Isaac was talking about, because the defensive backfield may be a little slow there. Greg Rousseau, I like Ed Oliver in there as well, filling holes almost like Casey Hampton did for the Steelers back in the early 2000s. So I think the defense played really well. The Cardinals do have a really good offense, and I think they're going to need that moving forward. All right. Oh, that's what I wanted. I was like, well, I had one more note because we talked about Von Miller being a third down pass rusher, and that's exactly what he was in this game, and it worked.
Had 2 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss.
In limited action, can we talk about the sack? By the way, it was not a sack.
Go ahead. Was it more of like he tripped on his shoelaces?
It was not a sack. But to your point, yeah, I mean, and that's a good spot for Von. I mean, look, he's admitted he's an aging veteran. He's not a guy who can be an every down player. And ended up with, a couple big tackles, especially on third down, to your point. But I just think that if they use Von in a limited capacity, that's a good thing. It keeps him fresh for the rest of the season. And look, he's still a guy who knows how to be able to get into the backfield. If he can make a couple of big plays here and there, it does nothing but help the defense. Last note I want to make on the defense too, Terrell Bernard, we know is going to have to be a huge factor in the middle of this defense. He made 10 solo tackles. 5 of them were in the middle of the field in one-on-one coverage. If he can continue to do that and be as good of a pass defender as he is a run defender, it's going to be huge for Buffalo too. So really good showing from Terrell Bernard. Dorian Williams had a couple of slip-ups in the first half. He was decent as well at the linebacker spot. So again, slow start for Buffalo in both instances, but they made adjustments, and I think that's something for a young and somewhat inexperienced team that's helpful when you look at how week 1 went.
Something else I want to note about this game is, you hear it all over the place. You hear everybody's talking about the dynamic kickoff. Why can't we just call it a kickoff? And Josh Norris from Underdog tweeted this out. He said, dynamic kickoff is making week 1 more exciting. And there was this quote tweet from this guy, Rufus P88. He says, "How much are you being paid to post this? Awful, awful change. We'll go down in shame as a 1-year oddity, the same as challenging penalties in the tuck rule." This dynamic kickoff, this game had the first ever kickoff return for a touchdown in the new kickoff return. So, Paul, explain yourself here, Judge. Why do you not on board with this kickoff?
Because it was a stupid, unnecessary change. We have kickoff returns for touchdowns in years past. It wasn't broken. It's a safety thing. It used to, you'd kick the ball in the end zone, then they give it to you at the 20. A couple years ago, that's too dangerous. We'll try to not do that. We'll give it to them at the 25. Well, coordinators don't care. Well, now if you kick it in the end zone, we'll give it to you at the 30. Nobody's taking chances.
Yeah.
Everything went to the corners of the end zone. It was a stupid, unnecessary change. Now that you can't do onside kicks unless you're behind by 14 points. It's an odd day and a leap year.
That part I don't like.
It's just so unnecessarily
Blue moon.
stupid.
It's interesting, Paul, that
it's gone.
It's
going to be gone after
Paul, that
this
you
year.
mentioned this, because I actually had the opposite approach. I thought it was really interesting.
I did too.
Well, keep in mind too, and the thing from this
How
game,
much are you guys being paid? Nobody liked this.
Well, hang on, because there's layers of strategy to this, right? In addition to the kickoff return touchdown, keep in mind there were 2 kicks in this game that did not land inside the landing zone, and that put the ball at the 40-yard line. Both those ensuing drives resulted in touchdowns. So
and bad kicks used to happen too. Like if it goes out of bounds, they put them at the 40. It didn't need to change.
Listen,
you
guys,
talk about the layers of strategy. There were already layers of strategy, but what happened yesterday was every special tems coordinator goes, "I don't know how this is going to go. Just kick it into the end zone
anymore."
Right,
and it's a new game.
This is my fault. I got Paul.
I was going to say you didn't have to talk about this undynamic kickoff.
I got Paul fired up at the end of a segment, but I had to. I like to poke the bear every once in a while. No, good game from the Bills. No, maybe not such a good game. And the next team we're talking about, we got to take a break. When we get back, we're talking Browns. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. NFL 1, Week 1, almost in the books. We got one more game tonight. I stayed up too late watching that game last night. I was down by 1 point in my fantasy football matchup.
I wondered how far into the show we'd go before Nick mentioned his fantasy team. I've got 49 minutes.
I meant to bring it up earlier, but we had to talk tennis. So
wow.
But so I'm down by half a point. All I need is a reception by Jamison Williams, and I'm like, oh, I got this in the bag. This is great. And Dan Campbell's established the run let me down. But we're not here to talk about the Lions. Although maybe we should think about the Lions as a Rust Belt team, but
it's close.
We'll figure that out.
But I'll have no man Campbell trash talk on this program.
That's fine. That's fair. I'm a Dan Campbell fan too. I just give J-Mo the ball. J-Mo had a great game. Anyway, speaking of great games, the Cowboys had a great game on Sunday because the Browns fall to the Cowboys 33-17 as their offensive struggles continue to maybe shake the rust off. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to unpack from this game, but also not a lot to unpack from this game. And can we go back to Thursday and can I walk back my Browns win the AFC North take, because that is not looking good.
Sprint back.
You thought Jonathan Williams and I were crazy when we gave you the looking like you had two heads, huh?
It's Cleveland, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Just what? Whoever wants to go, because I beat up on the Browns.
Can I just have everyone put an ear out just a second towards Cleveland? I hear some bells because there's a funeral procession going on on radio this morning. Look. I mean, I hate to say we told you so, but we told you so. And I mean, look, the sad part is this roster is too talented to lose a game like this. And we talked so much on this show about how Deshaun Watson should probably play in the preseason, right? He needs to get some repetitions. He needs to be able to figure out a way to fit into this Kevin Stefanski offense, which is clearly not what his skill set is. But I mean, Kevin's a great coordinator. He's a great play caller, but you need to be able to take time to work it out. Now, part of it was the Cowboys defense, right? And the immense amount of pressure they got on him. But did you know Deshaun yesterday was 0 of 10 when he threw the ball 15 yards down the field or more? Yeah. That is on plays that he had protection. And so I look at this, and it's a Cleveland team that is clearly beholden to this Watson contract. They can't get rid of it. And you almost wonder if internally there's a bit of buyer's remorse going on right now. And the question really becomes, how do you fight out of that? You clearly have to use Deshaun. You're not going to use anybody else. And so there's going to have to be some really big soul searching by this Cleveland team and fast about how you try to correct the offense, knowing you're not going to have Nick Chubb for 3 more games. Because if this continues, guys, this team is going to be 1-3 or 0-4 going into week 5. And I don't mince words. I know they don't have a tough schedule the rest of the way until week 5, but man, Deshaun doesn't look comfortable at all. He looks like a rookie quarterback currently.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If not worse. I mean, he looked like Bo Nix in Denver. I mean, it was just a rough outing. And that was the question I wrote down too, Isaac, was when do you just burn $230 million and move on? Because at this point, are you playing him because you think he's the best quarterback on the roster? Or are you playing him because you paid him $230 million fully guaranteed 2 years ago?
Well, I think the problem is with that, and last night John Leidick and I were talking about this because we talked about the Russell Wilson contract, right? And how Denver bought him out and said we're going to swallow the money. The problem is that Denver's roster wasn't good when that happened. Right. Cleveland has a top 5 roster in football. Yeah. So if you get rid of Deshaun, not only are you admitting you're wrong, but you're essentially willing to throw away 2 or 3 years of the best roster you've probably had in the 2000s. And it's essentially to say we're going to try to start fresh. You can't do that. So they're in a catch-22 where if you get rid of him, you're wasting away your talented roster. But by keeping him, are you really limited to what you can do?
I will not stand here for the Jameis Winston hate.
Well, guys, the silver lining was Deshaun wasn't the most disappointing overpaid quarterback in the building yesterday, as Tom Brady's much anticipated debut was, I'd say, milquetoast at best. But the question in Cleveland this morning is this: was it the offensive line or was it Deshaun Watson? Yeah. And the simple answer is Yes. Watson looked bewildered on the sideline when they cut to him. Kevin Stefanski and everyone else, they can talk all they want about plays Deshaun Watson can make that other QBs can't. But what I'm looking at is a QB who can't make plays every quarterback at this level should be able to make. The routine easy reads and quick throws that supplement the run game. In that first half, threw more balls into the dirt than actually hit his receivers. Deshaun has always been a guy who takes unnecessary sacks, and we see how at the end of last year, how the offense changed when Joe Flacco got in there. So it's hard to gauge, I think, how much is actually on Deshaun versus the O-line, playing without both starting tackles. Guys, I'm going to say what that didn't surprise me. What upset and surprised me was the Browns defense.
Yeah.
This was a top unit last season, and they looked inept at times yesterday. Zeke Elliott, pushing 300 pounds, scored a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb looked unguardable, no matter who the Browns put on him. I felt like Greg Newsome got away with a lot of handsy contact. It still didn't matter.
Yeah.
The Browns got burnt on both sides of the ball yesterday. And Isaac, you talk about a top 5 talent roster. They didn't look at like it in any phase outside of maybe a punt return.
Go ahead, Isaac. Go ahead.
The problem is with the defense, and I've said this for years, is that when Myles Garrett gets double teamed and he's not a factor, then the defensive line has no answer. And I think that's been a problem for Cleveland. They clearly didn't have an answer when Dallas had a great game plan for Garrett. But let me also factor in one more player or two on the offensive side.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we talked so much about how David Njoku wasn't an option. There's got to be an investigation as to the relationship between Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper, because it doesn't exist. It is not there. Cooper was targeted 9 times in this game. He had 2 catches. I'll give him 1 drop that he made in the fourth quarter. Other than that, I don't know how you can miss your star wide receiver that much, that often in that kind of a game. And if that continues, who's your top guy? Are you going to throw to Elijah Moore 10 times? You're going to try to target Jerry Jeudy? You have to factor in Amari Cooper into this offense, especially with Nick Chubb out. If that relationship isn't there, that's a problem because you don't have a receiver that can be a number 1.
Yeah, I think they factored him into the equation. They gave him 9 targets, but Watson just couldn't get him the ball. And is it because Watson's still recovering from injury, because he's just maybe not good at football anymore, or is it the offensive tackles? And I think that's what needs to reveal itself in week 1 or week 2, week 3. Is exactly that. I think the offensive game plan was there. It was just poorly executed. And Paul, you talked about the offense. They put up 33 points, but the offense, Dallas's offense, did not play great. I mean, Dak was 19 of
unstoppable. The Browns defense looked inept.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Because Dak was 19 for 32, but he only threw for 179 and 1 touchdown. Zeke, who averaged 4 yards a carry, but he only ran for 40 yards. CeeDee Lamb led the team in yardage, but it was only 61 yards. It was that defense that came out, just Micah Parsons specifically. You had a team defense. You had 6 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss, 8 pass deflections, 17 QB hits, and a touchdown. Nobody's going to win there. And I'm not defending the Browns because I think it's a perfect storm of everything, where you have the poor offensive play. You have just a great Dallas defense coming in, and those 2 offensive tackles. When you look at that defensive stat line, that offensive line needs to get healthy, and it needs to get healthy fast.
Deshaun Watson, I'm beginning to believe that the problem is between his ears at this point. I think coming out of college in those first couple of years in Houston, he was so much of a physical freak that even if he didn't, because he's never gotten the ball out quick. He's never been a 3-step, hit the back foot, balls out, on time, on target, keep the offense moving. He's always sort of been like a magician, like a playmaker, right? With all the requisite physical tools to be that guy. Now that those physical tools seem to have worn away a little bit, whether they come back or not is, remains to be seen.
Right.
But I don't think he's 100% right now. And when Deshaun Watson isn't the most physically imposing presence at the quarterback position on the field, there are deficiencies that limit his ability to run an NFL offense.
Yeah.
And the Browns they went all out of shotgun yesterday.
Yeah.
They can't go under center.
Yep.
I talked about it for weeks now. The Browns themselves did not go after any other running backs. They kept what was in the room and didn't give him any help in the run game there. And Isaac, you said it, as soon as Njoku went down, that offense was not good before it, and they sputtered afterwards.
And Njoku might be out for a while. Looks like a high ankle sprain. I think we can leave it at this. The state of the Browns? We have problems. We have problems in Cleveland. We don't have problems here on this show, though. This was a good one. You want to keep up, follow us. We are going to be back on YouTube on Thursday. Erie, Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Nick Artman, signing off for Paul Adamzak, Isaac Petcash, and Rich Smith. That's it. We're done. Have fun.